Hi, this is Abraham Walker, Ask A Walker, you know, the Virginia real estate agent, and this is week 4, day 27 of What If Gary Keller Was My Coach. This is the accountability session for this week. When I say week 4, that means that we're going into the 4th week of the program. So we're covering a few areas in this particular video. We're covering actuals versus goals, wins, areas to improve, as the CEO of you, how to rate yourself, plan for next week, takeaways, and what would Gary say, and my takeaways. This should be a bit of a shorter video than last week's video. So let's go into the actuals versus goals. For contacts, our goal was 100 contacts. The actuals was 100 contacts. Added to database, our goal was 50 people added to the database. 64 was the actual. Thank you notes written, what the goal was 50. The actuals was 50. Homes previewed, the goal was 10. The actuals was 10. Seller listing appointments, the goal was 2. Actuals was 0. Seller listings taken, the goal was 2. We took 1 seller listing. Buyer listing appointments, the goal was 2, 0 for the actuals. Buyer listings taken, the goal is 2, 0 buyer listings taken. Pages read, and the Millionaire Real Estate Agent was 50. 50 was the goal, 50 was the actual. Ignite session completed. The goal was to complete 7, 8, and 9. Only session 7 was completed, so that means that we'll be adding sessions 8 and 9 to this week's goal, which will include sessions 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. So it'll be 5 sessions, so essentially 1 a day in the business week. Let's see, another thing to... Okay, we'll talk about that in a couple seconds. Okay, so let's talk about the wins for the week. The wins for the week, we hit 100 contacts for the first time this month. We were previously on 50 contacts a week was our goal, and we decided last week, since we weren't hitting our appointment numbers, to increase our goal to by 100% to 100, and we hit 100. The number of people added to the database, the goal was 50, and we hit 64, and that is a byproduct of us switching from making expired and withdrawn phone calls to straight cold calls. So now what we're doing is we're making cold calls into a geographic, we're using a zip code. Inside that, excuse me, inside that zip code, we are essentially just blanket canvassing an area. Based on the number of contacts we're going through, we should be able to make it through 1 zip code in about 8 business days, because we're hitting about 300 to 400 contacts, are going through 300 to 400 records in a given day. Another win for this past week is when we didn't have an appointment on 3 of the 5 business days, we prospected in the afternoon, so we hit 5 hours a day, 3 days out of last week, which was also one of the things we wanted to switch up to doing, because if we don't have appointments in the afternoons, because our appointments are slotted for the afternoons, then there really isn't nothing else you're doing in a real estate sales business, right? Once you've taken the listing, or once you have a buyer client, when your buyer's either at work or they're not looking for properties, then there's not much you need to do. For your listings, once you've taken the listing and your listing is already serviced and the marketing plan is already in place, there's really not that much for you to do. So it makes sense to increase our prospecting time in the afternoon when we don't have appointments. Now, opportunities for improvement from this past week was securing more email addresses during our prospecting calls. Since we're doing a cold call, which is into a geographic area, we can use the geographic area's conversion rate or turnover rate as a good indicator of what is the percentage of the opportunities in the contacts that we're calling, right? And so the zip code we're calling today, and most of the zip codes in Northern Virginia, which is where I stay and I do business, the turnover ratio is usually about 4%, right? So we can anticipate that when we contact 100 people, 4 of those 100 people, 100 individuals in that zip code will be moving in the next year, right? And because we know those numbers based off of the number of homes in a particular zip code and the number of sales in that zip code, that gives you the turnover ratio. Then we want to start working on increasing our scripts, increasing our ability to deliver the script, to capture more email addresses, because the more email addresses we capture, the more we can touch the contacts using 3 methods versus 1. Right now we just have phone calls and direct mail. Acquiring the email address will give us the ability to touch somebody 3 ways. After we acquire the email address, then the next piece of information we want to capture is the cell phone. Then that gives us a 4th way to contact those individuals. Another opportunity for improvement: completing the Ignite material. I just didn't get around to it. So I'll be sure to knock out all 5 this week. As a CEO of you, how would you rate your performance? I give myself a 3. We're doing much better with executing the transition from our Mojo, which is the dialing solution that we use, to our CRM, and we're doing much better with implementing that process, getting those leads kind of scrubbed or washed, or prepared to go into their respective touch campaign, which is one of the things we're really focused on as we increase our contacts, right? Because the goal is to move every contact that we make, if we have their name, their address, into our database, and to build our database to $1 million database by the end of this year-long coaching session, right? I think that if Gary Keller was my coach, he would tell me to build $1 million database, and so that's what you're watching, right? So that's why we've increased our contacts. Yes, we're behind on our appointments, and we believe that the appointments come after you have a mature database. For anybody that's watching this that is a results-driven individual, I just want to let you know that the results are a byproduct of your activities, right? So you first have to have the actions, then you want to track those actions to get some type of conversion rate for yourself. How many numbers do you need? I don't know. I mean, I can't tell you. I just switched to making cold calls, so I can't say how many cold calls it would take to set an appointment, how many appointments that are set from a cold call conversation will lead to a listing taken. We just don't have enough numbers yet. So right now we're putting the numbers together, and then over time we'll be able to figure out what's my conversion rate. So for yourself, don't use my conversion rate. You want to start to track your own numbers and come up with your conversion rate. Okay, so what will we do differently next week? So this week we hit about 15 hours of prospecting. That's only on the phone. I don't count the other stuff. So I did do an open house last week. I don't count that in my total prospecting hours because I can't really say how many people are going to show up at the open house. So it's not really a good unit of measure for me to manipulate, right? Over time, right? So if I'm making phone calls using my dialing system, I know how many dials I'm hitting every hour, so I can say if I prospect X number of hours, I'm going to hit X number of dials, and because I'm hitting maybe a 10% answer rate using this particular call list, then I can anticipate this many contacts, right? With the open house, you can't tell that. You don't know who's going to show up, so we don't include that in our hours, but we did do an open house last week. So we're moving from 15 hours of prospecting, which is what we did, 15 hours of phone prospecting, what we did last week, to 20 hours of phone prospecting. So we're aiming for 4 hours a shift 4 hours a day, 5 days a week. We will also probably start to bank some of those hours, so hit 5 hours a day on some days, just to make sure that at the end of the week we bulletproof our opportunities, our ability to hit that goal. Okay, so now let's talk about the takeaways from this week. In the Millionaire Real Estate Agent book, which is this book right here, highly recommend you pick this up if you do not have it. It's a great book, great book. Okay, so in the Millionaire Real Estate Agent, it talks about on page 189, it talks about your budget for creating $1 million real estate database. If your goal is to put 1,920 people in it, assuming you have a $250,000 average sales price, it says to do the 33 touch program with that database, assuming that your touches cost 50 cents per touch. It'll cost you $31,680 a year to put that program in place. So that's similar to our budget for our 8x8 and our 33 touch for this program, which is adding 50 people per week to our database. Our budget for that program is about $36,000. So you see, we're in a similar ballpark, right? So my takeaway is that based on the book and based on what my previous projections, we're on target to at least put the database together. Now it's really just about executing that systematic database system, and over time holding that system accountable, right? Now there's a second part to this on page 189 about the $1 million database, and it is so what I just talked to you about was the MET database. So the MET database is $31,680 a year. The haven't MET database, which is more like a direct mail marketing pieces, that database cost is about $96,000 a year, right? So our goal, not this year, but going into next year, is to move to have our 2,000 people in our MET database, and to have our 16,000 people in our haven't MET database. So that means that our company will be expensing at least $120 something thousand just on marketing to databases alone, right? So that's the goal, and now it's just time to go make the money for it, and that's it. So what would Gary say about this week? I think that he would have been a little disappointed in the fact that I didn't complete my training, right, which was my night material. We did increase our contacts. We doubled our contacts, right? We didn't hit any appointments, but like I said, we just switched over to a new list. So working on a new list to figure out what our conversion rate is. Hitting 5 hours a day. I think he'd be pleased with the hitting the 5 hours a day for 3 days a week. I think that it would be I think Gary would be okay with this particular week. What are my takeaways from this? I'm very excited about the amount of activities that we've put together in almost 1 month, right? This little idea really came about at the beginning of the month, and I can really see a massive transition just in my focus, my energy level towards the business. Also, my belief that the system works, right? Right now, I am on page 205 in the Millionaire Real Estate Agent book. And this is really the most I've ever read in the Millionaire Real Estate Agent book. I have the book on audio, so I've listened to the book several times, but this is the first time I've ever read the book. And reading is just superior, just a superior form of consuming information when you compare it to audiobooks, right? So I'm really grasping a lot of that content. I really feel that my understanding of these systems and processes are advancing, and yeah, so I feel good. I feel really good about this. I hope anybody that's following along also look to do a similar challenge, right? Like, ask yourself, who's the most successful person you know, right? What if you worked for them, or what if they coached you, or what if they ran your business, right, for a given period of time? How would they do it, right? You don't need to know what they would really do. Just ask yourself, how would someone who's successful, right, in their own right, how would they look at this situation? And what I'm finding is, when I'm looking at these situations from a different perspective, right, I'm essentially giving myself permission to think outside of the box. That is just really opening up a lot of opportunities for me to see the world in a different way. So I hope that you get something from this series. Even if you don't, I like the documenting part of this process. This video series for me is my gift to Keller Williams, right? Because if you notice in the Keller Williams training programs, most of the Keller Williams trainers, they're already successful, and they're telling you about the fact that they like how they became successful, right? What you're watching right now is, you're watching someone who believes that they will be successful, more successful than he currently is, and you're watching that person document the level up, the leveling up of that business, right? And so I never seen this done before, so this is like a gift to Keller Williams from myself. So that's it for me. If you have any questions about any of the things I'm doing, please let me know. For the Keller Williams agents that are following along, I'm using the Millionaire Real Estate Agent book as the guide, and I'm using all of the training materials that's provided to us through Keller Williams University. So that's Ignite training, that's Win with Sellers, Win with Buyers, that's Lead Generation 3612-3, and I may throw in some Quantum Leap and some customer service at the end of this whole journey, right? So that's it for me. Abraham Walker with Ask A Walker, your Northern Virginia real estate agent, and I will see you on the next video. Peace.